If I wanted to recreate the research process, the way that I would do that is, say I started with a question, which is, why are some agencies designed to be insulated from presidential control? And then I said, okay, how am I going to answer that question? So what I did was I said, well, why don't I look at all of the agencies that have been created in the last 50 or 60 years and go back and research the politics that surrounded each of those cases and see what similarities or what patterns or systematic trends existed. And that was the way I approached this question. I had some expectations in advance about what presidents would think and what Congress would think based on their different places in the political process. And then I said, okay, so I've got all the data. There are some trends that exist there. I have some ideas about what trends should exist. And let me see whether these expectations are true or not. So I thought, presidents are really going to want control. They're going to want no insulation. They're going to want to have access to all of the resources so they can do what the public has elected them to do. And I thought Congress is going to be concerned sometimes about agreeing with the president if the president's from their party, but in other cases they're really going to be concerned about presidents having too much power and using that power in ways that they don't like. And given those expectations, then let's look at these cases. Let's figure out what the politics was. Let's figure out what they were thinking about at the time. And then looking over time at all of those cases, you get very clear patterns that explain when Congress is successful limiting the president's influence. What I did originally was I said, okay, let me figure out which agencies were created. And so there are these government documents that exist, the United States Government Manual, that are published every year. And so I went from year to year and said, here's the list of agencies that exist in 1946. And then I went to 1947. Here are the agencies that exist in 1947. Here are the agencies that exist in 1948. And so I built a list of all of the new agencies. And then I went back and I said, well, how did they get created? Did they get created by a piece of legislation? Did they get created by an executive order by the president? Did they get created by some kind of internal departmental order? Or did they get created by this vehicle called a reorganization plan? And then once I found out what those were, then I tracked those down. I found the legislation or I found the executive order. I read what those documents said and what they said about structure. Is it a commission? Is it an administration? How many political appointees are they? Do they serve for fixed terms or can the president fire them at will? And then when I had all of that data that described the structure of these different agencies that have been created, then I said, let's look at whether this is unified government where where both chambers in Congress and the president share the same party, or is it a period of divided government where the president and Congress don't necessarily share the same party? Is there a difference in structure based on those political configurations? Does Congress want to stop the president more when they don't share their same political views? And then I said, well, what about how secure Congress is? Do they think they're going to be in power for a long time or not? And let me look from year to year and say, how big's the majority? And if they have a really big majority, that likely means they think they're going to be in power for a long time, and so they're less worried about losing power. Because I thought, Congress probably, if they're worried about losing power, really is concerned about locking in, insulating their policies for the long run. And it turns out that that's true. So that's kind of what I did. I said, let's get characteristics of all these agencies over the years. Let's match it up with political factors like who controls Congress and who controls the White House. And then how big are majorities and what are members of Congress thinking about in terms of the long run? Are they worried about losing power immediately? And if so, I could test things like, do I want to create this differently to lock these things in down the road?